Hello, my name is Victor. This video covers lessons 13 and 14 of the Master Key System. I have included a link in the description that you can use to download it for free if you're interested in reading it. This part explains why certain forms of thought often result in disaster and frequently sweep away the result of a lifetime of effort. It explains the modern method of thinking and shows how actual, tangible results are thereby secured, and how conditions must change in order to meet the requirements of a changed consciousness. It explains the process by which this change is brought about and how we may hasten it. Introduction. Physical science is responsible for the marvelous age of invention in which we are now living, but spiritual science is now setting out on a career whose possibilities no one can foretell. Spiritual science has heretofore been the football of the uneducated, the superstitious, the mystical, but men are now interested in definite methods and demonstrated facts only. We have come to know that thinking is a spiritual process, that vision and imagination precede action and event, that the day of the dreamer has come. The following lines by Mr. Herbert Kaufman, relating to people who first dream and then achieve, are interesting in this connection. They are the architects of greatness, their vision lies within their souls, they peer beyond the veils and mists of doubt and pierce the walls of unborn time. The belted wheel, the trail of steel, the churning screw, are shuttles in the loom on which they weave their magic tapestries. Makers of empire, they have fought for bigger things than crowns and higher seats than thrones. Your homes are set upon a land that dreamers built to greatness. The pictures on its walls are visions from the souls of dreamers. They are the chosen few, the blazers of the way. Walls crumble and empires fall, the tidal wave sweeps from the sea and tears a fortress from its rocks. The rotting nations drop from off time's bow, and only things the dreamers make live on. Part 13 tells why the dreams of the dreamer come true. It explains the law of causation by which dreamers, inventors, authors, organizers, bring about the realization of their desires. It explains the law by which the thing pictured upon our mind eventually becomes our own. Part 13. It has been the tendency, and, as might be proved, a necessity for science to seek the explanation of everyday facts by a generalization of those others which are less frequent and form the exception. Thus does the eruption of the volcano manifest the heat which is continually at work in the interior of the earth and to which the latter owes much of her configuration. Thus does the lightning reveal a subtle power constantly busy to produce changes in the inorganic world, and, as dead languages now seldom heard were once ruling among the nations, so does a giant tooth in Siberia, or a fossil in the depth of the earth, not only bear record of the evolution of past ages, but thereby explains to us the origin of the hills and valleys which we inhabit today. In this way a generalization of facts which are rare, strange, or form the exception, has been the magnetic needle guiding to all the discoveries of inductive science. This method is founded upon reason and experience and thereby destroyed superstition, precedent and conventionality. It is more than 200 years since Bacon recommended this method of study, to which the civilized nations owe the greater part of their prosperity and the more valuable part of their knowledge, purging the mind from narrow prejudices, denominating theories, more effectually than by the keenest irony, calling the attention of men from heaven to earth more successfully by surprising experiments than by the most forcible demonstrations of their ignorance, educating the inventive faculties more powerfully by the near prospect of useful discoveries thrown open to all, than by talk of bringing to light the innate laws of our mind. The method of Bacon has seized the spirit and aim of the great philosophers of Greece and carried them into effect by the new means of observation which another age offered, thus gradually revealing a wondrous field of knowledge in the infinite space of astronomy, in the microscopic egg of embryology, and the dim age of geology, disclosing an order of the pulse which the logic of Aristotle could never have unveiled, and analyzing into formerly unknown elements the material combinations which no dialectic of the scholastics could force apart. It has lengthened life, it has mitigated pain, it has extinguished diseases, it has increased the fertility of the soil, it has given new securities to the mariner, it has spanned great rivers with bridges of form unknown to our fathers, it has guided the thunderbolt from heaven to earth, it has lighted up night with the splendor of day, it has extended the range of human vision, it has multiplied the power of the human muscles, it has accelerated motion, it has annihilated distance, it has facilitated intercourse, correspondence, all friendly offices, all dispatch of business, it has enabled men to descend into the depths of the sea, to soar into the air, to penetrate securely into the noxious recesses of the earth. This then is the true nature and scope of induction. But the greater the success which men have achieved in the inductive science, the more does the whole tenor of their teachings and example impress us with the necessity of observing carefully, patiently, accurately, with all the instruments and resources at our command the individual facts before venturing upon a statement of general laws. we ascertain the bearing of the spark drawn from the electric machine under every variety of circumstances, that we thus may be emboldened with Franklin to address, in the form of a kite, the question to the cloud about the nature of the lightning. We assure ourselves with the exactness of a Galileo, of the manner in which bodies fall, that with Newton we may dare to ask the moon about the force that fastens it to the earth. In short, by the value we set upon truth, by our hope in a steady and universal progress, by our resolve not to permit a tyrannical prejudice to neglect or mutilate unwelcome facts, we rear the superstructure of science upon the broad and unchangeable basis of full attention paid to the most isolated as well as the most frequent phenomena. An ever-increasing material may be collected by observation, but the accumulated facts differ in their value to assist the explanation of nature, and as we esteem most highly those useful qualities of men which are of the rarest occurrence, so does natural philosophy sift the facts and attach a preeminent importance to that striking class which cannot be accounted for by the usual and daily observation of life. If then, we find that certain persons seem to possess unusual power, what are we to conclude? Firstly, we may say, it is not so, which is simply an acknowledgement of our lack of information because every honest investigator admits that there are many strange and heretofore unaccountable phenomena constantly occurring. Those, however, who become acquainted with the creative power of thought, will no longer consider them unaccountable. Secondly, we may say that they are the result of supernatural interference, but a scientific understanding of natural laws will convince us that there is nothing supernatural. Every phenomenon is the result of an accurate, definite cause, and the cause is an immutable law or principle, which operates with invariable precision, whether the law is put into operation consciously or unconsciously. Thirdly, we may say that we are on forbidden ground, that there are some things which we should not know. This objection was used against every advance in human knowledge. Every individual who ever advanced a new idea, whether a Columbus, a Darwin, a Galileo, a Watt, a Fulton, a Stevenson, a Faraday, or an Emerson, was subjected to ridicule or persecution. Hence this objection should receive no serious consideration. On the contrary, we should carefully consider every fact which is brought to our attention. By doing this we will more readily ascertain the law upon which it is based. It will be found that the creative power of thought will explain every possible condition or experience, whether physical, mental or spiritual. Thought will bring about conditions in correspondence with the predominant mental attitude. Therefore, as fear is a powerful form of thought, if we fear disaster, disaster will be the certain result of our thinking. It is this form of thought which frequently sweeps away the result of many years of toil and effort. If we think of some form of material wealth we may secure it. By concentrated thought the required conditions will be brought about, and the proper effort put forth, which will result in bringing about the circumstances necessary to realize our desires, but we often find that when we secure the things we thought we wanted, they do not have the effect we expected. That is, the satisfaction is only temporary, or possibly is the reverse of what we expected. What, then, is the proper method of procedure? What are we to think in order to secure what we really desire? What you and I desire, what we all desire, what everyone is seeking, is happiness and harmony. If we can be truly happy we shall have everything the world can give. If we are happy ourselves we can make others happy. But we cannot be happy unless we have health, strength, congenial friends, pleasant environment, sufficient supply, not only to take care of our necessities but to provide for those comforts and luxuries to which we are entitled. The old orthodox way of thinking was to be a worm, to be satisfied with our portion whatever it is, but the modern idea is to know that we are entitled to the best of everything, that the Father and I are one and that the Father is the universal mind, the Creator, the original substance from which all things proceed. Now admitting that this is all true in theory, and it has been taught for 2,000 years, and is the essence of every system of philosophy or religion, how are we to make it practical in our lives? How are we to get the actual, tangible results here and now? In the first place, we must put our knowledge into practice. Nothing can be accomplished in any other way. The athlete may read books and lessons on physical training all his life, but unless he begins to give out strength by actual work he will never receive any strength. He will eventually get exactly what he gives, but he will have to give it first. It is exactly the same with us, we will get exactly what we give, but we shall have to give it first. It will then return to us many-fold, and the giving is simply a mental process, because thoughts are causes and conditions are effects. Therefore in giving thoughts of courage, inspiration, health or help of any kind we are setting causes in motion which will bring about their effect. Thought is a spiritual activity and is therefore creative, but, make no mistake, thought will create nothing unless it is consciously, systematically, and constructively directed, and herein is the difference between idle thinking, which is simply a dissipation of effort, and constructive thinking, which means practically unlimited achievement. We have found that everything we get comes to us by the law of attraction. A happy thought cannot exist in an unhappy consciousness. Therefore the consciousness must change, and, as the consciousness changes, all conditions necessary to meet the changed consciousness must gradually change, in order to meet the requirements of the new situation. In creating a mental image or an ideal, we are projecting a thought into the universal substance from which all things are created. This universal substance is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Are we to inform the omniscient as to the proper channel to be used to materialize our demand? Can the finite advise the infinite? This is the cause of failure, of every failure. We recognize the omnipresence of the universal substance, but we fail to appreciate the fact that this substance is not only omnipresent, but is omnipotent and omniscient, and consequently will set causes in motion concerning which we may be entirely ignorant. We can best conserve our interests by recognizing the infinite power and infinite wisdom of the universal mind. In this way we become a channel whereby the infinite can bring about the realization of our desire. This means that recognition brings about realization. Therefore, for your next exercise, make use of the principle, recognize the fact, that you are a part of the whole, and that a part must be the same in kind and quality as the whole, that the only difference there can possibly be, is in degree. When this tremendous fact begins to permeate your consciousness, when you really come into a realization of the fact that you, not your body but the ego, the I, the spirit which thinks, is an integral part of the great whole, that it is the same in substance, in quality, in kind, that the Creator could create nothing different from Himself, you will also be able to say, the Father and I are one, and you will come into an understanding of the beauty, the grandeur, the transcendental opportunities which have been placed at your disposal. Increase in me that wisdom which discovers my truest interest. Strengthen my resolution to perform that which wisdom dictates. Franklin. Part 13 Questions. What is the method by which natural philosophers obtain and apply their knowledge? To observe individual facts carefully, patiently, accurately, with all the instruments and resources at their command, before venturing upon a statement of general laws. How may we be certain that this method is correct? By not permitting a tyrannical prejudice to neglect or mutilate unwelcome facts. What class of acts are esteemed most highly? Those which cannot be accounted for by the usual daily observations of life. Upon what is this principle founded? Upon reason and experience. What does it destroy? Superstition, precedent and conventionality. How have these laws been discovered? By a generalization of facts which are uncommon, rare, strange and form the exception. How may we account for much of the strange and heretofore unexplainable phenomena which are constantly taking place? By the creative power of thought. Why is this so? Because when we learn of a fact we can be sure that it is the result of a certain definite cause and that this cause will operate with invariable precision. What is the result of this knowledge? It will explain the cause of every possible condition, whether physical, mental or spiritual. How will our best interest be conserved? This part explains the source of all power, wisdom, and intelligence, and how we may bring it into harmonious relations in our affairs. It shows that those who understand the principle get results in exact accordance with their understanding and their ability to make the proper application. This opens up possibilities hitherto undreamed of and by an orderly sequence of law. It explains the source of all energy and all substance and the method by which this universal substance is differentiated into form. It explains the nature of electrons and of cells upon which the maintenance of health and life depend. It explains how we may bring about radical changes in our life and what the result of such changes must necessarily be. Introduction. You have found from your study thus far that thought is a spiritual activity and is therefore endowed with creative power. This does not mean that some thought is creative. All thought is creative. And thought can be used in a negative way, through the process of denial. The conscious and subconscious are but two phases of action in connection with one mind. The relation of the subconscious to the conscious is quite analogous to that existing between a weather vane and the atmosphere. Just as the least pressure of the atmosphere causes an action on the part of the weather vane, so does the least thought entertained by the conscious mind produce within your subconscious mind action in exact proportion to the depth of feeling characterizing the thought and the intensity with which the thought is indulged. It follows that if you deny unsatisfactory conditions, you are withdrawing the creative power of your thought from these conditions. You are cutting them away at the root. You are sapping their vitality. Remember that the law of growth necessarily governs every manifestation in the objective, so that a denial of unsatisfactory conditions will not bring about instant change. A plant will remain visible for some time after its roots have been cut, but it will gradually fade away and eventually disappear, so the withdrawal of your thought from the contemplation of unsatisfactory conditions will gradually but surely terminate these conditions. You will see that this is an exactly opposite course from the one which we would naturally be inclined to adopt. It will therefore have an exactly opposite effect to the one usually secured. Most persons concentrate intently upon an unsatisfactory condition, thereby giving the condition that measure of energy and vitality which is necessary in order to supply a vigorous growth. Part 14. The universal energy in which all motion, light, heat, and color have their origin, does not partake of the limitation of the many effects of which it is the cause, but it is supreme over them all. This universal substance is the source of all power, wisdom, and intelligence. To recognize this intelligence is to acquaint yourself with the knowing quality of mind and through it to move upon the universal substance, and bring it into harmonious relations in your affairs. This is something that the most learned physical science teacher has not attempted, a field of discovery upon which he has not yet launched, in fact, but few of the materialistic schools have ever caught the first ray of this light. It does not seem to have dawned upon them that wisdom is just as much present everywhere as are force and substance. Some will say, if these principles are true, why are we not demonstrating them? As the fundamental principle is obviously correct, why do we not get proper results? We do. We get results in exact accordance with our understanding of the law and our ability to make the proper application. We secured no results from the laws governing electricity until someone formulated the law and showed us how to apply it. This puts us in an entirely new relation to our environment, opening up possibilities hitherto undreamed of, and this by an orderly sequence of law which is naturally involved in our new mental attitude. Mind is creative, and the principle upon which this law is based is sound and legitimate and is inherent in the nature of things, but this creative power does not originate in the individual but in the universal, which is the source and fountain of all energy and substance. The individual is simply the channel for the distribution of this energy. The individual is the means by which the universal produces the various combinations which result in the formation of phenomena. We know that scientists have resolved matter into an immense number of molecules. These molecules have been resolved into atoms, and the atoms into electrons. The discovery of electrons in high vacuum glass tubes containing fused terminals of hard metal indicates conclusively that these electrons fill all space, that they exist everywhere, that they are omnipresent. They fill all material bodies and occupy the whole of what we call empty space. This, then, is the universal substance from which all things proceed. Electrons would forever remain electrons unless directed where to go to be assembled into atoms and molecules, and this director is mind. A number of electrons revolving around a center of force constitutes an atom. Atoms unite in absolutely regular mathematical ratios and form molecules, and these unite with each other to form a multitude of compounds which unite to build the universe. The lightest known atom is hydrogen, and this is 1,700 times heavier than an electron. An atom of mercury is 300,000 times heavier than an electron. Electrons are pure negative electricity, and as they have the same potential velocity as all other cosmic energy, such as heat, light, electricity and thought, of about 186,000 miles a second, neither time or space require consideration. The manner in which the velocity of light was ascertained is interesting. The velocity of light was obtained by the Danish astronomer Romer in 1676, by observing the eclipses of Jupiter's moons. When the Earth was nearest to Jupiter, the eclipse appeared about 8½ minutes too soon for the calculations, and when the Earth was most remote from Jupiter, they were about 8½ minutes too late. Romer concluded the reason to be that it required 17 minutes for light from the planet to traverse the diameter of the Earth's orbit, which measured the difference of the distances of the Earth from Jupiter. This calculation has since been verified, and proves that light travels about 186,000 miles a second. Electrons manifest in the body as cells, and possess mind and intelligence sufficient for them to perform their offices in the human physical anatomy. Every part of the body is composed of cells, some of which operate independently, others in communities. Some are busy building tissue, while others are engaged in forming the various secretions necessary for the body. Some act as carriers of material, others are the surgeons whose work it is to repair damage, others are scavengers, carrying off waste, others are constantly ready to repel invaders or other undesirable intruders of the germ family. All these cells are moving for a common purpose, and each one is not only a living organism, but has sufficient intelligence to enable it to perform its necessary duties. It is also endowed with sufficient intelligence to conserve the energies and perpetuate its own life. It must, therefore, secure sufficient nourishment, and it has been found that it exercises choice in the selection of such nourishment. Each cell is born, reproduces itself, dies and is absorbed. The maintenance of health and life itself depends upon the constant regeneration of these cells. It is therefore apparent that there is mind in every atom of the body. This mind is negative mind, and the power of the individual to think makes him positive, so that he can control this negative mind. This is the scientific explanation for metaphysical healing, and will enable anyone to understand the principle upon which this remarkable phenomenon rests. This negative mind, which is contained in every cell of the body, has been called the subconscious mind, because it acts without our conscious knowledge. We have found that this subconscious mind is responsive to the will of the conscious mind. All things have their origin in mind, and appearances are the result of thought. So that we see that things in themselves have no origin, permanency or reality. Since they are produced by thought, they can be erased by thought. In mental, as in natural science, experiments are being made, and each discovery lifts man one step higher toward his possible goal. We find that every man is the reflection of the thought he has entertained during his lifetime. This is stamped on his face, his form, his character, his environment. Behind every effect there is a cause, and if we follow the trail to its starting point, we shall find the creative principle out of which it grew. Proofs of this are now so complete that this truth is generally accepted. The objective world is controlled by an unseen and, heretofore, unexplainable power. We have, heretofore, personalized this power and called it God. We have now, however, learned to look upon it as the permeating essence or principle of all that exists, the infinite or universal mind. The universal mind, being infinite and omnipotent, has unlimited resources at its command, and when we remember that it is also omnipresent, we cannot escape the conclusion that we must be an expression or manifestation of that mind. A recognition and understanding of the resources of the subconscious mind will indicate that the only difference between the subconscious and the universal is one of degree. They differ only as a drop of water differs from the ocean. They are the same in kind and quality, the difference is one of degree only. Can you appreciate the value of this all-important fact? Do you realize that a recognition of this tremendous fact places you in touch with omnipotence? The subconscious mind being the connecting link between the universal mind and the conscious mind, is it not evident that the conscious mind can consciously suggest thoughts which the subconscious mind will put into action, and as the subconscious is one with the universal, is it not evident that no limit can be placed upon its activities? A scientific understanding of this principle will explain the wonderful results which are secured through the power of prayer. The results which are secured in this way are not brought about by any special dispensations of providence, but on the contrary, they are the result of the operation of a perfectly natural law. There is, therefore, nothing either religious or mysterious about it. Yet there are many who are not ready to enter into the discipline necessary to think correctly, even though it is evident that wrong thinking has brought failure. Thought is the only reality, conditions are but the outward manifestations. As the thought changes, all outward or material conditions must change in order to be in harmony with their creator, which is thought. But the thought must be clear-cut, steady, fixed, definite, unchangeable. You cannot take one step forward and two steps backward, neither can you spend 20 or 30 years of your life building up negative conditions as the result of negative thoughts, and then expect to see them all melt away as the result of 15 or 20 minutes of right thinking. If you enter into the discipline necessary to bring about a radical change in your life, you must do so deliberately, after giving the matter careful thought and full consideration, and then you must allow nothing to interfere with your decision. This discipline, this change of thought, this mental attitude will not only bring you the material things which are necessary for your highest and best welfare, but will bring health and harmonious conditions generally. If you wish harmonious conditions in your life, you must develop an harmonious mental attitude. Your world without will be a reflection of your world within. For your next exercise, concentrate on harmony, and when I say concentrate, I mean all that the word implies. Concentrate so deeply, so earnestly, that you will be conscious of nothing but harmony. Remember, we learn by doing. Reading this book will get you nowhere. It is in the practical application that the value consists. Learn to keep the door shut, keep out of your mind and out of your world every element that seeks admittance with no definite helpful end in view. George Matthew Adams. Part 14 Questions. What is the source of all wisdom, power and intelligence? The universal mind. Where do all motion, light, heat and color have their origin? In the universal energy, which is one manifestation of the universal mind. Where does the creative power of thought originate? In the universal mind. What is thought? Mind in motion. How is the universal differentiated in form? The individual is the means by which the universal produces the various combinations which result in the formation of phenomena. How is this accomplished? The power of the individual to think is his ability to act upon the universal and bring it into manifestation. What is the first form which the universal takes so far as we know? Electrons, which fill all space. Where do all things have their origin? In mind. What is the result of a change of thought? A change in conditions. What is the result of a harmonious mental attitude? Harmonious conditions in life. Thought, immaterial though it may be, is the matrix that shapes the issues of life. The mind has been active in all fields during this fruitful century, but it is to science we must look for the thoughts that have shaped all thinking. Selected. Advice. Remember, fully to understand grand and beautiful thought requires, perhaps, as much time as to conceive it. Joubert. If you wish to enjoy the utmost practical benefit from the master key, go slowly. Transfuse into your mind the contents of one part only, each week for 24 weeks. Realize the meaning of every phrase. Consult the master key constantly, as your perpetual help and stimulus. Each time you read the work you will get a better understanding of the eternal cosmic principles. Tell others of the master key so that more and more people may reciprocate with you, as conscious adepts in harmony. The publishers.